Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make a small contribution following on a little bit from the Honourable Stevie Chadwick with respect to firstly the issue of water and secondly the issue of Māori representation in decision making. There's no doubt that water is a major issue for Māori. It's been discussed at the iwi leadership group and in our own forums, and we have discussed with the Minister that any discussions around this particular bill that would possibly jeopardise the bigger discussion with respect to water needs to be taken off the table, because the substantive issue about ownership of water is something that is going to have to take some serious time, and that maybe the issues about the governance, the management of the water, and while it's solely around Canterbury, is something that we definitely want to be involved with. Clearly, Māori do have a position on water issues, and while we might operate at different levels at this point in time, where, for example, the bill that's going to be coming towards the House in a couple of weeks' time with respect to Waikato Tainui about co-management and issues are one line. In my own case, in my own iwi, we take a straight up and down line with that we own the water that comes out of our land. These are the sorts of things that probably need to have some greater debate down the line. We know it's a serious issue because the former Labour government ended up giving back to Rotorua, as the Honourable Stevie Chadwick said. Well, they gave back the lake beds and without any water in it, but that'll come. That's an issue that Te Arawa will indeed follow up at a point in time, possibly even asking the Crown to pay up for storage of the lake ever since the settlement went through, storage of the water in our lake. But I'll cross that bridge down the line when our Trust Board possibly puts that to the government at some point. It's clear that Māori do want to have a say about water, and at this point in time, unfortunately, the systems like local bodies, sometimes like even Parliament, don't necessarily allow for that input to come through. The system doesn't necessarily allow that to come through, and we take a view in terms of the Māori Party that the relationships to bodies like this, to local bodies, are about a treaty relationship that we take seriously. We would suggest that in the treaty relationship, any decisions are all about both parties coming to agreement through discussion, and obviously the right of veto of one party over the other is an important issue that is about, I suppose, the views that we present as a Māori Party, and we would hope that Māori partners, through sitting next to the treaty partner on local bodies or as commissions or otherwise, is an important statement to be made. And we would hope that, and we've asked the Minister with respect to this, about a treaty relationship in the bigger picture down the line, and specifically we've placed that issue to him about this in water, and we hope that he's taken that on board. So we look towards treaty relationships as being a way that might advance Māori aspirations and understandings about the importance of water. And with regards to our feedback from Ngaitahu, we understand that they, up until this point in time, have not necessarily had the ability to make real inroads in the decision-making around water. So while, as the Minister has already said anyway, that Ngaitahu reluctantly are moving to support the movement of this bill through its passage, there is that issue there with respect to representation, and Ngaitahu have obviously expressed their frustration at lack of involvement. So we have been given the assurances from the Minister that Ngaitahu will have a position in and around the Commission and at the table, and while it's not the beginning and ending of everything by having possibly one position, there are 2 points to be made. Number one, firstly, we have a position, that's important, and secondly, that we shouldn't believe that just having a position by itself represents the sole Māori view. That in fact, we've got expertise throughout Māori that could come into that commission to provide valuable input. So don't rely on that one person to give the Māori input. But the good thing is, as I say, that the Ministers recognise the importance of having tangata whenua involvement, and it would have been really good if the Honourable Rodney Hyde had have seen this in terms of the Auckland Super City proposal, but obviously he didn't. I'd like to just close by saying that the discussion at our caucus was around what happens after the Commission, having done its term. 3 or 4 years, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, that having given its position and worked through all of the issues with respect to water that have been debated throughout the last day and a little bit, that what happens afterwards? Does that mean, okay, we go back to democratically elected positions? Well, maybe the argument, that's been the debate throughout the last day or so. But my point to the Minister, and it was certainly from our caucus, is to ensure that, okay, having set the precedent for allowing Ngāi Tahu as an example to have input into the decision-making process through at least the Commission, that line is maintained after the end of the Commission's time by having a position that is on a decision-making process as of right, outlined against the treaty responsibilities, a treaty perspective that we would hope that the Minister, and indeed that as we move through, complete the time, yes, but after that, that's where we want to see, again, Māori participation, not by going through, because it ain't going to happen, basically, at this point, as it's happened in the past in Canterbury, that it isn't going to happen by simply believing, oh, the democratic process will deliver a Māori input. That ain't going to happen, not in Canterbury. So we're looking at having set positions in those councils to ensure that the Māori input that is important in terms of a perspective around water and other things is heard and given and allowed to contribute in the best interest of the community.
I call